Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Social Media Decoded podcast, the number one podcast to help you understand social media better so that you grow your business, get more clients, and monetize. And today, I have a special guest. Y'all already know the drill. I am excited because we are diving into all things marketing and monetization, social media success, and the person I'm interviewing, her name is Michelle. So y'all know this is going to be a really great episode. Welcome, Michelle, to the Social Media Decoded podcast. How are you?
So great. Whenever there's Michelle squared, I feel like magic happens, right?
Yes, Michelle squared and magic. That sounds really good. And so I love your Instagram. I have to say that I followed you on Instagram. I'm like, oh, I have to have her on the podcast. She just creates really great content. I know she'll provide some really great gems on the Social Media Decoded podcast. So can you tell the listeners a little bit more about you? How did you get started with social media in your business?
Yeah, so I've been using, I've been using social media for a long time, but marketing is my background, and I've been helping women grow their businesses online for the last, 7 to 8 years. And I really love Instagram specifically because, and all social media, but we have never had this opportunity to grow businesses for free in our home or as we're traveling or whatever your life looks like. You can build a business around it because of social media. And I think we don't stop and think about it because we're all thinking about the algorithm and this changed and then and we have to post. Are you kidding me? How many times do I have to post? And instead of being like, oh my gosh, this is such a gift, now I just have to learn how to use this tool to grow my business. So I have a marketing agency, and I also teach people how to use social media. So I have a teaching side, or we'll do it for you. But we help the top creatives, influencers, small and big businesses grow online using social media. That's Instagram, blogging, email, Pinterest. I think they're all social, right? They're all becoming more and more social because that's what's working. And so, anyway, so that's my background. I love to teach this because I think it's so empowering. And I also love to help business owners take that next step with our agency.
Oh, I love this too. Agency owners about to get into this chat because it is just social media. And I heard you talk about multi-channel marketing, which I am 100% in belief of, because you cannot just be on Instagram. You should be in multiple places, not everywhere, but the places that make sense for your ideal client and audience. So I want to chat about the business owner who feels overwhelmed and they're looking for an agency. They want to hire someone, but they don't really know like what to even look for. I get a lot of people who say, well, I don't even know what I need. So what would you tell that business owner? Like, how do you define what you really need when it comes to your social media and your marketing campaigns? Like, some people may feel I can do some things myself, but should they? Right?
Yeah, these are really great questions. And I mean, we get them all the time, right? I'm like, I'm overwhelmed. Like, how do I even do this? And so I first would take a step back, maybe stop using Instagram for just a minute, stop looking around and figure out like what your goals are. So you have to figure out like where you're going before we can help you get there. So you don't want to just say, I want to have 1 million followers everywhere. Of course you do, but why, right? Like, where is that? How is that going to get you more money? And how does that back up your message and your purpose? And then we can help you get there. And then I would say there's a book that's called 10x is easier than 2x. And it's really good. Everyone should read it. But it just talks about, hey, if you really if you want to go that next step, you have to focus in on the things that only you can do. And that's hard to do, to let go of that. But there are things that are $20 an hour jobs. And are you doing those? Are you still doing those when you're trying to build this empire? If you're doing $20 a dollar jobs, then maybe you need to let those go and start focusing on the other things. So those are some things I think about as far as steps go. Write down your goals. The next thing I would do is what platform makes sense for my business. So if you're on a social media, the next step is email. That's what I would say. Whatever social media on, get an email list. And then we can start talking about longer term platforms like podcast, YouTube, and a blog. But usually people start on social media. And then that next step for me would be, all right, email list, because that's easy to get social to email. And then we build on longer term platforms.
Oh, you said that keyword in there. Gems were dropped. The email list is so important. And I feel like if we're not growing that, we're missing out. I know there's some people who are so against email. I kind of feel like do what works for you, but there everything works. Like email works, SMS text works, Instagram works, Facebook works, it all works. But where is your client? Where are they hanging out? What is the demographic? You have to really look into that when you are thinking about, that's why you said goals, right? Thinking about that, because your clients may not be on Instagram. Yes, it's like I feel like Instagram is a pillar platform for many businesses. Whether or not you make money from Instagram, and let's talk about that, like making money from Instagram. Do you feel that it is a platform that's just instant money? Because I kind of look at it as brand awareness. You still got to nurture the people. What are your thoughts on Instagram, like as a pillar platform for brands?
So yeah, I think Instagram is really, I think one of the most valuable social media platforms because it's the easiest to build a relationship with. Like TikTok, you can get a lot of people all at once, right? It's a lot easier to go viral on TikTok, but they have not mastered the relationship building. Just because, like, if you follow someone, you may or may not see them in their feed. And so their stories, you're not checked. It's just a whole different way that you use it, TikTok, right? So Instagram, I think, is really, really good for relationship building and building a long lasting customer. It's definitely not the only place to go. But as far as like monetizing, you have to think about like, there's no place that's an instant moneymaker. Okay. And if anyone is selling you that, they're lying to you. Okay. Yes, you can hit it. I've had people who have gone viral and they come to me and they're like, now what? I'm like, well, do you have a business? Like, do you have a model for this? Like, do you have a product that you can sell, And so, yeah, you can get a lot of views quickly, but that doesn't make a business, right? You have to know what you're selling. And you also have to understand the transformation that you're taking your people on and be very, very clear about that. So, yes, you can make a lot of money on Instagram, totally. But you have to have a strategy and it has to be, you have to be bigger than Instagram, right? Like if you're only doing Instagram, then guess what you have is usually a job. I work with influencers. And so they come to me often and say, Michelle, I've got to figure out a way to sell products without me showing up in stories. Because how exhausting is that? Is that they have to perform if they're going to make money. And that's why we bring in email lists and we bring in podcasts and those things that last longer than 24 hours, like our stories do. And then you can build that empire without like burning you out.
Oh, you just gave another masterclass? Because burnout is real. It's real. And being multiple places, like you said, that are more long term will be better in the end. Yes, it's going to be like a slow burn. It's going to take, step by step, because a podcast is not quick. This is my 3rd year in this podcast, and I reached 200,000 downloads recently. And so I've been brick by brick recording every day. I know we do 3 episodes a week. I'm like, we got to get it out there. So you have to be consistent. That's another thing. So I'm glad you said that, because I think people tend to focus just on Instagram, and it's so disheartening. Like when I talk to people, I'm like, there's other platforms. Yes, Instagram can be one of your main, but also think about a podcast or a blog or YouTube. They are all beneficial, again, depending on what you do and who your person is. So that was so good. That was so good. But on the topic of Instagram, there's Instagram Threads. Now I've dabbled in it a little bit. I will say, like, I kind of felt overwhelmed, and so I haven't really been back on there, but I know that you are on Instagram Threads. So let's talk about Threads for a minute. Is there a right or wrong way to use Threads? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that it's been really interesting to watch the evolution of Threads, right? Because it came on and we all got on all at once, and that was awesome. But if we weren't used to like consuming that content, like a lot of people, I think they kind of trailed off, and that's not. I think there's a dip in users since the initial big push. So as far as Threads, I mean, you have to just understand that Threads is just another social media platform. So all the rules apply. So like the rules apply that you have to know your audience, right? What problems can you solve for them, and how can you show up for them? So when people first got on Threads, it was like all the business people went and hung out at the mall and they were talking to each other. And it was like, oh my gosh, it's a new platform. We love being here. And so they were just putting up all this random content, and and that was fine in the first week, but now it's I'm sorry, it's social media rules as normal. So you have to serve your audience and you have to connect with them, and provide some like a value. Why do they want to show up? They're not just going to show up for you because you're on Threads and because you're a nice person. But you have to, it's always like, what's in it for them? What is in it for them? But I would look at Threads. I think, uh, if if you are good with your Instagram plan and you have time for Threads, then add it on, right? But and then I would use it as, I like to ask questions over on Threads and get some instant feedback, and also give like really quick tips. And a lot of the tips I just take from my Instagram content and repurpose. I usually just write it out, because like I don't see the carousels on Threads performing the same way. I think it's a written platform. So anyway, so those are just some quick things with Threads. Is it's okay, take a breath, and then start serving your audience.
Yeah, I like how you gave that mall thing. Oh my goodness. I thought it was like that too. Everybody was like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. We're having fun. All right. And then now people I'm sure, are more focused towards how to leverage it as a platform to use in their strategy. And that was how I originally thought of it. And then people were like, no, let this be a fun platform. And I was like, well, if that's the case, I don't know, because I'm already thinking like, hey, how can I leverage this? Like, how can I use this in my business? Like, that's just automatically what I was
Oh
thinking.
my goodness.
Although I do
Yeah.
want to have fun, right? But I also want it to be a part of my business.
Yeah, so yes, there were a lot of people who were like, please don't start talking about business on here. And I'm like, what in the world are you talking about? Because guess what? If content creators don't show up on a social media platform, it dies, because there's no ads and there's no one creating great content. You have a text thread, you have a group me for your friends. Go hang out over there. That's where that stuff is happening. But if you want a social media platform to live, there has to be a way to monetize it, and it doesn't get monetized without business owners. And so I was the same way. I was like, I know, friends, you're mad because I'm teaching business right here, but I mean, that's my brand, and I am not spending time, especially on something like that, if it's not benefiting my business, right? Like, what are we doing if we're just like throwing stuff out there? So you and I, Michelle squared, like, it's all about the strategy. Like, what are we doing here?
What are we doing here, right? What are we doing here? We're not just using it because we want to. I mean, we do want to have fun. It is fun, but I also know that there are people on there who can benefit from the things and the transformations that we provide. So it's another outlet. So thank you for that. If you're thinking about Threads, let me know. Tag me on social media at Michelle L. Thames. Let me know. Are you still using Threads? Are you going to think about putting it in your strategy now that you've got Michelle, who has expertise in Threads? Ooh, I love when I bring on amazing experts who break it down for us. You broke that down, and I love that. Another thing that is so important is community. I feel that Instagram is definitely that place where community is built. What are your thoughts on building community? Should everybody build a community? Is it about community?
Yeah, I really think going forward with people's business, like any business, especially with AI coming on and, all the automation things, people are really going to be looking for community and connection, with a real person, and they want to see a real person. And I mean, that's how we're wired, right? We want to connect with people. And so I think your community can all look the way that you want to look, like it doesn't have to be the way that someone else is building a community. But that's what a business does, right? It gathers people with shared values, or shared goals, and we're moving together, and that there's so much power in that. And that's really for Instagram specifically. I see stories is where the community is built, right? And so use that to really get to know your audience. I love Instagram because of that, because I can put out a piece of content and I can like test an idea, and I can get instant feedback if that was a good call or not, right? And it's also like a funny place where you can build like so I talked about pink donut. So in California, they have donut shops everywhere, right? And they're not, it's not a chain, but they all are doing kind of the same thing, and they're the best donuts you'll ever eat. And so I mentioned that, and I like went on this pink donut box thing because there is a whole documentary about it. So I watched a documentary about it, and then I went down some podcast rabbit holes. Anyway, I had people who are like, now I can't think of a donut without thinking of you. And that is pretty powerful, like when you think about that, right? And that was just me showing up randomly in stories. And you can get some really fun inside jokes that's how people connect, right? You want to feel like you're talking to someone. And so community is going to just get more and more important. The more social media platforms there are, the more AI there is, those kind of things. Community is going to be the thing where like people are actually connected to you, they care, and they will continue buying from you.
Oh, it goes down in the stories and the DMs. Definitely.
Yes,
I
it
love
does.
stories. I definitely need to do better with stories. Like some days I just get into my day and I'm like, oh, I forgot to post a story. But I did post a story today. But I know we shouldn't go overboard with stories like we used to, like 5,000 in a day. Like it should just be like modest, like morning, afternoon, evening, right? Kind of sort of. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that, well, you just have to think about how are people using stories and how are people viewing stories. So right now, here's a quick tip. Do this, okay? I know you can record 1 minute stories. Don't, okay? Stop it early, okay? No one is listening to you for a minute unless they're just not, I don't know, even people really compelling. I'm like, okay, let's move it on. So that's a great feature. Thank you, Instagram. Now you have to self-govern. You can't go I like it. I will try to keep it between 15 and 30 seconds. And then also another quick story tip is that most people are listening to stories with the sound off. So always add captions or at least some kind of titles. But as far as frequency, so when you add a new story, it refreshes your story feed and you get moved to the beginning. So if you only show up and you do 10 slides in the morning and then never again, like that whole day, then what happens is someone watches the first 3 and then they exit and your stories get into the back of the line. And so that's why what you're saying works and it's a good pattern because then it helps us have a system, but to have something in the morning and then something like at lunch and then something in the evening, because it keeps refreshing our stories and gets moved to the front of the line, which means more people view. So that's why that strategy works. So if that's working for you, you keep on going. But to just think like, don't do 10 stories all at once, but really spread it out and keep that conversation going.
Oh, I love that. Oh, show up on the Instagram stories. I know people are like, oh, but I got to put on makeup and I got to do. No, you don't. Just show up, show what you're doing. I guarantee you people will want to see like the behind the scenes, like what you're doing. Just share it. Like you said, you shared about donuts and had no idea that people would even be interested in that. And now they think of donuts and think of you. That is awesome. I love that. That is awesome. So this part of the podcast is one of my favorite parts. It's the book and resource section. So has there been any books or resources or podcasts that have helped you along your entrepreneur journey as a business owner that you would like to share with the listeners?
How much time do we have? So the most recent that I've been reading is that I read 10x is easier than 2x. And then I'm actually just going to put my Audible list because I am always listening. I have been listening to do you know I don't know. I have kids, so I don't swear. But You're a Bad A books. Those are always good if you want to.
I have kids too. I got a kid.
My book has like the word crossed out. And they're like, what does that say? I'm like, I think you know, but I'm not saying it. If you're getting into YouTube, I love the YouTube Formula. Very, very good by Daryl Eves. StoryBrand is so
Pillar
good,
book,
right?
Pillar.
Donald Miller. Yep. So those are some good starts. I am constantly reading, and because building a business has been the best. It's the best because it's like forces you to have self-development, right? Like if I'm not developing, then my team isn't developing. And so I love it and always constantly learning and growing.
Yes. Oh, those are good ones. I have to check out the YouTube because I have a YouTube. That's actually where I started, but I need to get back into YouTube. So that's a great book. I love all the books that all the amazing guests share here. So remember, y'all, we love Audible, but you can also, if you have a library card, go to Libby and rent the Audible books or the ebooks as well on that app too. So that's for the United States, though. It's called Libby, the Libby app. But this has been such an amazing episode. Michelle Square, I love that. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. But before we head out, definitely let the listeners know, where can we find more about you or follow you? I'm sure on Instagram. And if we want to work with you, how can we get in touch with your business?
Sure. Come find me on Instagram at I am Michelle Gifford. That's where I teach. I also have an agency, Michelle Gifford Creative. So if you want us to help you, we can build your website. You can do your branding. I have a team of amazing women who will help you build your brand. And if you want, one of the biggest things I think for Instagram is getting really good at hooks and getting those out. And we have a free hook guide that's an easy thing that you can change today. And we can give that to you. So if you want to, you can DM me. You just DM me hooks and I'll send you our free guide. But yeah, come over and hang out with us on Instagram. It's where you're going to learn about donuts. You're going to see my dog. You're going to see all the things that we're doing over on Instagram stories.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. This is a really good episode. Make sure you guys go back and take notes because some gems were dropped. A lot of good Instagram tips, a lot of good things about social media in general and what we should be paying attention to, because believe me, it's always changing. But that's why we always bring on amazing guests like you to keep us on the up and up and what's going on in social media. Thank you so much, Michelle. And we will talk to you all in the next one. Peace.